called a snapshot. But if we're going to make a snapshot, that means we have to do stuff to our boxes. So what we're going to do is we're going to update our box, teach you how to update your image so you know exactly how to do all the security patching and everything else that comes along with it. Then we're going to break out, fire up a box, update it. Then we're going to WinSkip a program over. Right? So everybody downloaded WinSkip about a week ago. WINSCP. We'll walk through how to use that. We're going to drag a program over, and then we're going to configure it. And then before we terminate it, we're going to do a snapshot. When we come up with a snapshot, that means you can relaunch that snapshot as an instance, so you don't lose it when you terminate it. Right? So if you do work, if you make a snapshot and then terminate it, you can always bring back up where you stopped in your work. Yes, sir? That is so much different than stopping or terminating, because that idea of a snapshot saves the state of where you were last in your box. So if you were busy installing software and you got dragged off for something else, you could make a snapshot of that point, terminate the box, save that snapshot back, and then when you come back up, you can actually launch it off that snapshot. So you don't lose any work, right? While most cloud computing is ephemeral, sometimes we're deep in doing stuff in configuration, and the next thing you know, someone's dragging you off to lunch or dragging you off for a cup of coffee or doing something else in a work unit, where you're going to want to take a snapshot just in case something stupid happens. Because stupid happens a lot when you're dealing with cloud computing, right? Especially if you have an overzealous manager like me that just terminates instances I don't recognize, whether you're in it or not. Sorry about that over the weekend. Yes, sir?
Taking a snapshot and terminating and stuff, is that cost effective than leaving it running?
It is totally cost effective because all I'm paying is for storage. And I'm paying something like 2 cents a gig for storage, but I'm paying something like 10 cents a minute for the thing to run. So if it's just open and running, that storage is actually a cost savings over the amount of money it takes to run the thing, just in empty cycles. So kind of make sense? Okay. So what we do is we have our box, and again, this is the one that I was building out. I'm going to be using this for all my CIS classes, so don't kill it. So we have TestMonkey, right? TestMonkey is a box that I just built up, just started it, it's brand new, it's totally fresh, right? Oh, I bet you don't have putty on this either. Oh, nope. So standard everything, just like you've done before.
That's where you use your private key?
Just your PPK key. So log in as EC2 user. All right, so when we want to update, what it's going to do is it's going to tell you right off the top. You're going to hold on until I'm done, okay? Can you turn off the lights? Is the lights distracting everybody? Is it? All right, lights out then. Yeah, just drop them. Drop them both.
I don't know.
All right. All right. We had dueling light switches. Anybody got some banjo songs? Now. All right. So when you first log in, you fire off an instance. Amazon's going to tell you that your instance has got some issues that you need to do. You're all familiar with apt-get. You're all familiar with wget. You're all familiar with those kinds of things. This uses something called yum. Right? So you have yum and yast, which are SUSE and Red Hat specific. Okay. So instead of apt-get install or wget, all you do is you just type in sudo yum update. And then what it will do is it will go out and read all the packages that it wants to install for you. Right? And generically, it's going to cost me 52 megs. It's going to install 3 packages and upgrade 42. So you just say, yeah. And then it will go through and do its whole automated update, everything. The thing I find interesting, too, is it's going to throw a new kernel in there as well. So you're going to see it pause for a minute, and then it's going to throw in a whole new Linux kernel for you. So if it throws in a new Linux kernel and you have an application that's built on a different kernel, that application might break. So something to be really familiar with, right? Yeah. So this is the kernel where it's going to pause and install. So you want to make sure you grab that kernel version number, 3.2.361. Yep, you can do that afterwards. But you want to make sure that if you have an application dependent upon an older kernel, right, that you pay attention to what kernel is loading in so you can go back and do what's called regression testing. All right, regression testing is a testing method where you go back and you click every button on that website and make sure that it will react well with the new kernel, right? You check all your applications, you run all your SQL commands, and you get it to the point and you find a what's called a break stop. If something's broken, you stop right there and you wait. Then you throw it up as a bug entry to your team, and then your team will come through and fix whatever needs to be done. So when you have something like that, break stop is always a good way of handling the bugs that will be introduced when you update a kernel. All right? Kind of makes sense? Yes, sir. Amazon's got its own code repository specifically for its AMIs. So yes, it is downloading them internal to the network, which is sweet because I don't actually have to pay for the bandwidth. And I like not having to pay for bandwidth. All right, so once it's done, it's all good to go. All right, so my computer is now updated for security and patches on both the kernel and the application. All right, and that's a really important distinction to make. A lot of people do the updates, but they'll only update the operating system. They won't necessarily update the applications that go along with it. So you want to make sure your applications are up to date as well. And that's why the yum system, sudo yum update, is actually really kind of a good thing to do whenever you bring up a new image, right? And one of the other things that we kind of want to do too, if I can spell today, clear. Now, this runs a little bit different than what you're used to with Ubuntu. You're used to grepping for Apache, and you're used to grepping for MySQL, right? If you grep for HTTP, it doesn't know what HTTP is because it doesn't know what Apache is. So when you go and you do an update, right? So when you do you actually have to say HTTPD. You can't say Apache 2. And then it will go through and say, okay, here's what it is. So the package names are different in the Amazon world than they are with the Ubuntu that you're used to. All right? Yes, sir. You can bring up a Ubuntu server, but even still, you're still going to be dealing with difference in package names. Right? Because it's on the Amazon cloud, because they mostly are a Red Hat SUSE shop, not so much Ubuntu. Right? You can find a Ubuntu image, that's not a problem. But I want you guys to see what the other images do so you learn a new command set. Right? And that the tweaks between Ubuntu versus Red Hat versus SUSE versus Debian, there's differences in how they all operate. So you're kind of getting a new operating system along with this. Right? And then if you want to install it, you just say yeah. So the other thing too, and this is the big one I want you guys to note, is that it uses RPMs. It doesn't use traditional packages like you're used to, right? So it uses a package manager. It uses the Red Hat package manager. So that's why you want to go through and use yum. So if you download and install anything, you want to download and install the RPM, not the package like we're used to using with Ubuntu. So you have a completely different package manager on top of it, right? So that's a good thing to know. So once you've got that running, and this is like one heck of a long honking command set, right? If you want to install MySQL and PHP, the command set's kind of long and hideous, so I'm not necessarily going to remember this. So we want to type in sudo yum install https mod ssl mysql server php mysql and php minus xml. The cool part about this is you can actually string a bunch of packages together. All right, you don't have to do this one at a time. you can actually string them all together and then just let it go do its own thing. So you can basically string your packages together and say, yeah, sure, this is what I want to do, and then just kind of walk away from it while it does its own thing. And the good part, too, is that if you do it this way, by stringing all your packages together, it will auto-start the processes for you. So if you want Apache or HTTP to run, if you want MySQL to run, if you want all these others to run, it will actually start all these processes for you, so you don't need to go into the etc inet.d folder to do a start or stop. You may have to do that for a restart. All right, and then it's all done. And you're pretty well good to go. All right, MySQL is kind of tricky on this one. All right, so there's two things you want to remember about MySQL. cd var lib is that you're going to see the MySQL directory. You want to do sudo chmod 755 MySQL. Even though it's already that way, even though it's already 755, it doesn't really quite take right. And you can run into some real problems with MySQL launching. Right? etc init.d MySQL. If I can type again today. All right, so it's MySQL-D. So what you can do is you can do MySQL-D, if I did this right. Unknown job. Okay. All right, I'll have to figure out what's going on with that here in a minute. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I always try to do stuff without being sudo. Can't connect to local. All right. So if you what? There is, but I tend to forget it. So can't connect to local MySQL server through socket. So usually this tells me that there's something wrong with how the setup went. Yeah. See, I'm telling you, typing today is going to be hard. All right. There you go. MySQL-D. All right. There we go. All right. Helps if I can type today. All right. So, helps if I can type. Typing is always good. All right. So we're up on that. We're running. We're good on that. So we want to also then do a grep to make sure that HTTP is running. All right. So if that's not running, we need to do, everybody remember how to do Apache start? All right. All right, so there's HTTP running. So that's pretty much so good to go. Hold on just a second. All right, I'm kind of on a roll here, so I kind of want to finish this up while we've got it. So we have MySQL running. We have Apache running. Then we want to go into WinSkip. Now, before we just kind of had you install it. So you want your instance name, right? Your username. Leave the password blank. Go in, grab your key, put it in there, and then click on login. You're going to get the error that this is not in the cache, in the host cache, so you just say, yeah, you want to go ahead and connect. And then what it does is it gives you what's called the commander interface. So you have my computer, and then you have your distant end computer. So if we go into var, www, HTML, this is where we'll find all of our HTML stuff, right? If you want to make a new folder, new directory, and then you can actually set what specific permissions that you want on this. So it starts off as 755. Permission denied. Why would I get permission denied? Because I'm not root. So that's one thing that you want to remember, is that if you are actually here, what should I change that to so I can do this? All right, and this is just going to be a temporary fix because I don't want to leave it that way. Yeah. Because I really don't want to leave it that way. New directory. And then I went ahead and just downloaded stuff to my desktop. So I downloaded PHP MyAdmin. And you can just then select everything that's in the directory and drag it on over, and that will essentially copy everything over, so you can just go do your install from here, right? And that will bring everything on up that you want to do. So that's everything I want you to do today. Pretty straightforward? Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and fire on your boxes.
Can you put this recording?
This recording I can put on YouTube, yeah. All right, so first things first, right? Go ahead and spin up an instance, but spin up a Linux instance, okay? So everybody remembers how to spin up a Linux instance? Pick whichever one you want. The reason why I use WinSkip is because it works really, really well with Amazon. All right? It looks a lot like FileZilla. I use FileZilla in the real world, but WinSkip works really, really, really well with the key structure in Amazon in ways that FileZilla doesn't. So FileZilla is a good program. I usually use it, but whenever I'm doing Amazon, I really kind of want to keep it so that I'm tied into the crypto nicely. It reads the keys nicely. All right. So once you've spun up your T1 micro instance, now what I'm going to recommend too, right, is that you take a look at the security group that you use, right? And the reason, why would I want you to look at the security group? It's because of what we open up inbound, right? So if you use Quick Start 1, I've already opened up all the ports for you. You've got port 22, you've got port 80, HTTPS, MySQL, and remote desktop. You don't need remote desktop, but all your ports are already open for you. If you use anything other than Quick Start 1, you won't have all those ports open the way you need them to be. And it will cause you problems on your install later on. Just so you remember. So I would use Quick Start 1 as your security group. Quick Start 1. Quick Start 1. The one I've got highlighted. It was the first Linux AMI box. I just went with whatever was default to kind of show it off. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Differences in how the architecture actually functions between Red Hat, Debian, Ubuntu, SUSE. There's a huge difference between how the architectures actually function.
So what do you do if it doesn't let you into
If it doesn't actually want to let you into it and it hates you, then you basically back out and start all over again. So click on cancel. So while you're waiting for this thing to copy over, this will take a couple minutes. So it takes about 5 minutes to copy over. It'll probably take about 10 given what we've got. Huh? Yes, very much so, because we're coming in on the front public side. And I'm not too worried about it. Oh man, who's starting up Windows boxes? If you started up a Windows box, you definitely want to go and move over to a Linux box. Because none of what I just showed you will work on a Windows box. So whoever uses IE9C and I52A really just kind of need to shut them down and start all over again with something else. Unless you want me to terminate it from here. Which I can do if you want. Do you want me to kill it? You'll do it? Perfect. Now, one other thing you're going to want to do when you get over there, does everybody remember how to set a password in MySQL? All right. So if you don't remember how to set a password in MySQL, the command is MySQL minus U space root space minus P space single quote, whatever password you want it to be, single quote. Because your MySQL is going to come up with an empty password. You guys are going to be tired of MySQL by the end of this term. Access denied. Yeah. People get tired of sudo. Huh? EC2 minus sign user is your login, yeah. So if you want to, we're just going to play around with PHP MyAdmin right now, because this will just make it easier. So if you just go do a phpmyadmin.net downloads, kind of help you out on that one too. All right. Oh, don't edit your key.
No.
Okay. Just making sure that you don't edit your key, because editing your key would be bad. Try this. Yeah. interesting way to doing this.
So I did a sudo yum update.
Very good.
And it got to the kernel, and then I tried to
It will
copy the
pause.
kernel. I know it paused.
Uh-huh.
I tried to copy the kernel because you were all like, remember this number.
Okay.
So I copy pasted it, and then it stopped, and then it was going up to anything past it.
Oh, yeah.
So I tried again. It says no packages marked for update. Package law.
Okay. Yeah, usually you just want to write it down by hand. If you do that, you kind of interrupt the handler. All right, so here's one thing that you guys should probably want to know. When you see the kernel go by, if you try to select it, you actually interrupt the process, and it breaks the update. It won't update fully or completely. So you really just want to write it down on a piece of paper as it scrolls by. All right, if you try to copy and paste it within PuTTY, it will break the process. You should just kill it and start all over again. Kill it. Kill it like a monkey. Yes, sir. Server refused our key. Okay.
I've tried 2 or 3 different PuTTY keys.
When you started up your server, whose key did you use? Pseudonymous. All right. Can you go in through PuTTY and log in?
That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Well, yeah,
Is it? And then the other thing too is it running?
is it running? It should be running.
Okay, it's running. Cool. I have to ask these questions.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Okay.
Just checking.
Yeah.
All right. And then you have the public DNS. Okay. All right. Fire that bad boy off and let's see what we got. Server refused your key. Okay, yeah, that means your keys are bad. So if your keys got shot, you have to cut new keys.
Alrighty.
Remember how to cut a new key?
I do.
Awesome. Make new keys. Boy, I tell you what, the key management is going to be a pain in the butt with this thing. No, I didn't. I stopped there because I went to download PHP MyAdmin. I didn't want to finish up the install package on that because I wanted to be able to drag and drop it so I could show you WinSkip.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. If your keys are bad, you have to kill your instance and cut yourself a new key.
Okay, so I have to take this down. I have to
Yep.
terminate it?
Yep, you can terminate it. All right. Hey, if you guys can give me a list of keys that are bad, I'll take them out of there.
Awesome. So
Cool.
Well, HTTPD, and then it's
All right, so it's sudo yum
yeah, install.
yum install httpd.
I did. Now what's next?
You did that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was then the next one is the really long, painful one. Where did I drop that? No, that's how to actually do the password. Yeah, that's this horrible thing. Unhighlighted there, sir. But yeah, no, that's that whole horrible thing. Sudo yum install https blah 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 blah. Make sense? Okay. Now you had a question next. Hold on. You're good.
I have 2 keys because my key from here wouldn't work at home, so I just created a new
Okay.
key, and that's the one I use at home.
Okay. Nope, that's cool. What you got?
The list, these two are bad, so I'm just going to write it down and hand it to you so you can take them out.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, everybody else good? Kind of, sort of, maybe?
I just got it.
Okay. Nope, getting it launched is cool. You're working on it?
HTTPD, is that the same thing as Apache 2, or?
It's their equivalency to Apache. It's just that difference in package name. So instead of Apache 2 like we're used to with Ubuntu, it's just HTTPD. So it's kind of a stripped down, leaner version of the whole darn thing. So no problem, man. How else we doing? Do we need the lights off again? There's a lot of there's a lot of glare off the screen, isn't there? Is that better? Everybody agree that this is beautiful and wonderful, and we're all glad, happy Wednesday? All right, maybe. So are we pretty well good with this?
Yeah, can you leave this up?
I will leave this up, but I want to know. Basically, we've got it all recorded while you guys are doing this. So I'm wondering if I can turn off the recording.
Yes.
Okay, we're good then.